Hey, Brian Haradsky here with Pete Lorenz, the the Towerlight sports editor, and we're going to talk about the new NFL rule for overtime. So Pete, you had some. I was talking to you earlier. You had some pretty opinionated thoughts on it, which I thought were good. Would you like to share them with us?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I think that there did need to be a change in the rule. I know that not every game results in the coin flip being the determinant of the winner, but I still think that it was a problematic rule. And when they went to make a rule change, it seemed like all they were doing was that they were trying to give both teams the possession so that not the first team to score would win. And I think the whole thing missed the point. I think the point was sudden death doesn't work in football. It's not effective. Sudden death works in other sports such as soccer and hockey because possession is fluid in those sports. Possession changes hands all the time. The first team to get possession is really unlikely to just score. In football, that's not quite the case. And in football has never been a game where possession changes hands all the time. It's very structured in how possession works. And for that reason, it's very structured in who can score when, and that's why it's based more on a time limit. And so I think they're missing the point when they're trying to decide who gets possession when. I think the bigger problem is that when you have sudden death, it's not football anymore. It becomes a completely different sport. They play differently in overtime than they do in regular time, and that's not right. Overtime shouldn't be like that in any sport. It shouldn't be changing how teams play, how teams strategize.
You can tell when defenses play in overtime, they start to be a little bit more conservative. They usually don't blitz as much. And with the NFL, football's different because with hockey, you're not carrying the puck. You don't have it in your hand. With soccer, you don't have this soccer ball taped to your foot. So with football, you have the ball unless you choose to pass it. You have it pretty tightly secured.
Right. And in those other sports, you don't have that. But for football, I really think the entire basis of the game is structured around 15-minute quarters, 30-minute halves. And at the end of those, whoever's winning, they're the winner. And I think the best way to do it would just to make another period. And whoever's winning after that wins. Maybe only 10-minute period, maybe a full 15-minute period. Whoever's winning at the end of it wins. And in the regular season, I think you should still be able to have ties. If you're tied at the end of the overtime period, it's a tie game. And in the playoffs, you can't quite do that. You'll just keep going until somebody's winning at the end of a period. But for the regular season, I think people are afraid of ties. I'm not sure I understand why. The idea is that you want to have regular season games. The point is to determine which team was better. And you take the best teams that prove they were better than most, send them to the playoffs. When a regular season game, if two teams are deadlocked and they can't even settle it after overtime, what's wrong with saying that they were equal? You give them a tie, you said the two teams were even. Well, that's what the game said. If the two teams were deadlocked, why let the record show something else? If the team won by 10, you would say they won. If they lost by 10, they lose. If they were tied, they tie. That's how it works. I just think we get away from this by trying to twist things around so much to get exactly what we want, when in essence we're losing what we want, which is football. We're not getting football because we try to get exactly these certain results, and we're losing sight of what's so great about the sport, because overtime doesn't look like football to me. And I think the biggest argument against mine would be that you're adding a lot of time. Injuries could be a problem, and I understand that, but if you look at how much preseason is played, you play 4 preseason games, 60 minutes apiece.
Well, a lot of the starters don't play.
Okay, let's say they play 10 minutes a game. 4 games.
Unlikely.
A starter plays 10 minutes in each game? Yeah, I think they do. That's all. Less than a quarter per game. They'll play less than a quarter. 10 minutes. It's not that much.
The superstars usually don't play. They might play a quarter for one, and maybe the third preseason.
I think it's safe to say they play a total of 30 minutes in the preseason. That's a little less than 10 minutes a game. I think it's safe to say the starters.
It depends.
The quarterbacks might not play that much.
It depends on the player.
It does, but I think on average they'll probably play about 30. You look at the overtime, how much they're going to play. Well, being generous, a team plays 2 to 3 overtime games a season. You know, you're not going to play more than 45 minutes of overtime. So, you know, you're not playing really that much more than they did in the preseason. You're not adding that much time to what you would in the preseason, especially when you consider that the average overtime game probably goes about 6-7 minutes. So you're only adding on another 8 or 9 times 2 or 3 is 24 minutes. I'd argue you're playing less in overtime per season, even with an extended overtime like the one I would have. You're playing less in overtime per season, even for the starters, than you are in the preseason. So if you were to nix preseason or only make it 1 or 2 games, that'd be a better way to keep guys from getting injured than, say, cutting overtime and screwing with results. I think I understand why we want to get rid of injuries, but we also want to have correct results in football games. And I don't think the best time to cut time is when games actually matter. I think it's much better. I think, you know, cutting time from the preseason is a better way to get rid of injuries. There shouldn't even be overtime in preseason games. I don't know, is there?
I doubt it.
I don't know if they have overtime. They shouldn't.
Actually, yes, there is overtime because
I
remember I went to the Ravens-Jets game and
it went in overtime.
No, the thing was Rex Ryan had a choice to go for 2 or tie it up to go into overtime, and he was like, I'll go for 2 because no one wants to play overtime in preseason.
Right. There shouldn't be overtime. It should be a tie because
I actually think overtime in preseason's okay because you know it's going to be the fourth string guys, the guys that are going to be playing special teams.
The only reason you want to do overtime.
And the guys that are right out of college, the undrafted rookie free agents, and that is a good time to
fourth quarter is just as good to do that. I think fourth quarter is just as good.
A little bit more time doesn't hurt, but again, I don't think
cut time from the preseason. I think get rid of it. I think cutting overtime in the regular season is a bad idea. It was a bad idea to start with. I think ties are just fine. They keep the game what it is, and any attempt to get rid of ties because people don't like them. You know, if we're really talking about competition, if we're really talking about making games fair, which is what they want, keep ties in, keep sudden death out. Those have nothing to do with, you know, getting rid of ties and having sudden death have nothing to do with football. It's a completely different sport.
Tie looks better than a loss, right?
Tie looks better than a loss. And especially on the sheet when, if, say, Bengals and Ravens played, they're deadlocked, it's tied 20-20, they go through overtime, it's 27-27. Did either team actually deserve to lose? Not really. So they should both get a tie. They were even. That's how it was in the game, so that's how the standings should say.
All right, this is Brian Haratsky with Pete Lorenz, and this was our talk on the new NFL overtime rule. Thank you.
Thank you.